You're lucky. 5 people have died over the last 30 years trying to crawl inside that ship. Blew themselves up poking torches around. There's enough live ammo down there to blow up half the island.
Oh, come on, will somebody just cut the crap, blew themselves up for what?
Goliath was a military ship, boy. Went down with munitions and medical supplies. Well, so they say.
They're there, all right.
All right, what's there?
Morphine. 98,000 ampules.
Welcome to the Cinematic Flashback Podcast. Get ready to hop into the Wayback Machine as we journey through the wild, bold, and unforgettable films of the 1970s. Each episode, we break down a classic movie or forgotten gem by exploring the who's who of each film, diving into the premise and plot, seeing how it performed then and now, and wrapping things up by asking, did it groove through the decades or did it lose its beat? Today, we're taking the plunge into Peter Yates' 1977 underwater thriller, The Deep, based on the book by Jaws author Peter Benchley. And joining me again is Jeff Johnson from A Film by Podcast, sporting his scuba gear and white t-shirt. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Yeah, you got to dress for the occasion, right, Chuck?
Well, it's always appropriate to dress to the film, you know?
I know we will discuss the shirt. Like, when we get there, I do want to discuss another shirt because I'm confused. I really am.
Definitely we can get into there. Hey, by the way, I just wanted to say congratulations on the relaunch of your YouTube channel. That's been awesome. What do you got going on over there?
Yeah, Chuck, we actually had the channel, but we just never really did anything with it until back in October. We go to Scarefest weekend. We had an amazing time. We were invited as a media guest. So we've got all these amazing interviews on camera with some really just awesome celebrities. And then we thought, well, what are we going to do with this stuff? David had this great coverage. So we're like, let's do some YouTube stuff. Let's create some specials. So we kind of relaunched the channel a couple months ago and happy to see it growing and starting to take a life of its own. So Chuck, you know this, like you start with a podcast, then you got to have the social media, then you got to have the Patreon, and then you got to have the YouTube channel, and it just keeps expanding, right?
It keeps growing.
Yes.
All the things.
Chuck, back in October, if I could, it expands, it oozes, right? Like the Blob, which you know something about because you were on one of our most downloaded episodes in October when you joined us for the Blob.
I'm telling you, Chuck Russell and the Blob, I had forgotten how much I really liked that film and how much fun it was. The other thing that was a lot of fun was Deadly Blessing with Amanda Janik.
Our deadly friend, Amanda Janik, the slasher girl.
Oh,
she's always a great time.
One of the interviews that you had was with Michael Berryman, who played in Deadly Blessing. That was really cool to see that.
I think someone like him, he's always quick to answer questions about The Hills Have Eyes or the Smoke in the Boys Room Motley Crue video, things that he's always asked about. So when I said, hey, let's talk about Deadly Blessing, he kind of perked up. He's like, okay, we'll talk about Deadly Blessing. I got a story for you. So it's always fun when you get something that they're not prepared for.
If you want to hear that story for Deadly Blessing, go back over and listen to the Deadly Blessing episode over at A Film By. So The Deep was not on my radar for the first season of Cinematic Flashback until you mentioned it. Tell me why this film, and when was the first time you remember seeing it?
I know I probably would have been maybe my teens. This one came from Blockbuster. Scanning the aisles, and I was like, from the guy that wrote Jaws. It's got that iconic box cover where they kind of take the Jaws artwork, and instead of the shark, it's the girl in the white shirt and the black bikini bottoms, and she's like struggling to get to the surface. So it has that ominous feeling, reminds you of Jaws. And I was like, wait, Quint from Jaws is in it, and Nolte, who's a stud, and Jacqueline Bisset. All right, I'm in. So yeah, I saw this in my teenage years and absolutely loved it. I don't know, it hits all the notes for me. It's it's a little bit of a thriller. It's an adventure, and the cinematography is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
I remember when the Cinematic Flashback podcast started and you made a call to the listeners on social media and you're like, hey, tell us if there's something out there. And I was like, hey, how about The Deep? And then I heard, it's like people, hey, we're still looking for episodes. I was like, Chuck, come on, man. The Deep. It's a 70s gem, man. Like, I can't paint hard for this one. I will admit that.
You're talking about you start off with a podcast and then you go into social media. And you forgot one step, which is at some point you actually make a schedule
Yeah.
of like, this is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to record. This is when it's going to release. Because if you don't, you're just kind of, what's next? And that's how we started until we figured out that a regular schedule is a lot better for everybody.
I get it, man. Our schedule's finished for next year already.
I have just shared our film lineup for next season, so stay tuned.
I'm excited, man.
Before we dive in, I want to give a quick spoiler warning. The Deep isn't streaming free right now, but you can rent it almost anywhere. If you want to watch it first, go ahead and hit pause because we're going to talk about various plot details of the film that might ruin certain elements of this film for you if you didn't want to know. So don't worry, we're not going to surface until you get back. We'll take a quick intermission here. Just enough time to grab some popcorn or top off your drink. You're listening to the Cinematic Flashback Podcast. Stay tuned. The show continues right after this. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed that brief intermission. Now, let's roll the next reel and get back into the conversation. Jeff, here's a quick synopsis of the plot for those who've decided to come along. Maybe they haven't seen it or maybe they've rejoined us. But David and Gail are vacationing in Bermuda, and the film opens on the two of them exploring a wreck of a ship. David finds a relic that looks valuable, while Gail finds an ampule filled with a mysterious liquid. After returning their scuba equipment, the couple seek out Romer Treese, a local treasure hunter, to help identify the relic that David found. At dinner, the two are approached by Cloche, who, unknown to them, is a local drug kingpin who has an interest in the ampule that Gail has found. Soon, David and Gail find themselves caught between treasure hunters, criminals, and a giant territorial moray eel lurking in the wreck. Let's check out the trailer for 1977's The Deep, starring Nick Nolte, Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Shaw, and Louis Gossett Jr.
From the #1 bestseller by the author of Jaws, this is The Deep. It begins in Bermuda with the adventure and romance of an island vacation, a fantastic opportunity for two young lovers to get away from it all. Was it beginner's luck to discover a sunken wreck in less than 60 feet of water?
Where'd you get this exactly?
Was it coincidence that there were two treasures, one of priceless jewels, the other more valuable than that?
You must be the young couple who found that bottle this afternoon?
Certainly didn't look like anything.
We didn't find any bottle.
The danger and excitement of treasure worth killing for. The adventure and intrigue of a secret worth dying for.
She hasn't got it. If his tongue moves again, cut it.
Go upstairs, pack, and go home.
I'm going down there. And you're gonna have to blow me up, too.
As you please, boy.
And beneath it all is the terror of the deep. Robert Shaw.
I'm gonna signal you and I'm gonna fire this fuse. Now after that, I don't care if you found the Holy Grail itself. You've only got 3 minutes.
Jacqueline Bisset.
Oh my God.
Nick Nolte.
Come on, Trace! All right, Trace, what the hell's going on?
Louis Gossett.
Forced me to take what you would not let me pay for.
And Eli Wallach.
98,000 ampules.
David, it's morphine. Morphine!
From the #1 bestseller, this is The Deep.
The Deep premiered on June 17, 1977, just 2 years after Jaws. And audiences were lining up because they wanted another undersea thriller. Look at these ingredients, and most of these, Jeff, you've already named. It's directed by Peter Yates, who directed Bullet in 1968. It's based on a Peter Benchley novel, and the screenplay is by Benchley himself. You have Robert Shaw returning once again to the water. Nick Nolte was fresh from the TV miniseries Rich Man, Poor Man, and Louis Gossett Jr. had just finished Roots. And a poster, as you mentioned, that was practically the Jaws design. And there's no way that that could have been an accident. What they wanted you to think of when you saw The Deep is you wanted to think of Jaws. But let me ask you, Jeff, is The Deep Mayor Vaughn's Barracuda?
Well, I don't know about it being his Barracuda, but it's certainly his moray eel, which will scare the hell out of you the first time you see it.
Oh, yeah.
And, when you think back to Jaws when we're comparing scars and Hooper's like, it's a moray eel, bit right through my wetsuit. Back then I was like, big deal. But this thing, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
I had to ask Matt if he's seen this because if you heard him on Omen, he doesn't really like scary movies.
He doesn't like horror films. Yeah.
But he loves jump scares,
Yeah. Well, Matt, this one's for you, buddy.
Yeah. The moray eel jump scare it's great. It's a good one. But I got to ask you, this film is rated PG. What do you get in this film? You've got underwater terror, you got blood, you got voodoo, you got drug trafficking, and of course, you got the most famous wet t-shirt moment of the 1970s, all rated PG.
I kind of feel like you have the most famous wet t-shirt moment of all time. Think about this. The wet t-shirt contest. Legend has it began in 1971. It's whispered about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But 1977, thanks to Jacqueline Bisset, it becomes the thing to do at spring break. Like, what she does in the first 10 minutes of this movie basically inspires the whole wet t-shirt contest movement for generations to come. So
I don't doubt that. Peter Goubert, who's the producer of this film, took out an ad in two gentlemen's magazines where he had a picture of, on the left-hand page, it was Jacqueline Bisset, and on the right-hand page was the poster. She had no idea he was going to do that, and she was not happy with having her photo published in those publications at all.
Listen, I'm going to side with Jackie, as Robert Shaw liked to call her, because it is a little exploitive.
Yes.
Let's call it what it is. That being said, it's brilliant marketing, because what made this movie a box office success early on was its word of mouth and...
The opening scene.
And basically, a lot of guys looking at certain men's magazines in 1977 were seeing a photo from the movie and saying, hey, come see Jacqueline Bisset. I totally understand why she threatened to sue. It makes sense. What's done is done, right?
Well, Peter always said that that t-shirt made him $1 million.
Dude, if you made $1 million, cut her in on it, Well,
let's talk about this cast, because it's not a large cast. It's very tight, but I think everyone in here is a big name. If they're not a big name then, they became big names. And at the top of the bill, you have Nick Nolte. This is his first starring role in a film, I believe. How does he do?
I think he does great. Hopefully, you guys will cover a film called North Dallas 40, starring Nick Nolte. I always do that as young Nick Nolte, right? And he is a leading man. He's just got that all-American look to him. And to think that this is one of the movies he does before North Dallas 40, I would have just assumed, like, you watch this in 1977, and then you see Nick Nolte, and you go, yep, he's a movie star. He's the next big thing.
Yeah.
And he's great. I believe him in the water. I believe him fighting off Cloche's thugs. I believe him going head-to-head with Robert Shaw's character. So I loved him. I think he's great.
What's pretty amazing is each one of these actors spent a large amount of time in scuba gear, under the water, at least 30 feet down. And they did it multiple times to get this film. So each one of these actors did something that a lot of actors are not going to agree to do when they learn what the film is about. We talked about Jacqueline Bisset. I was surprised that her character and David weren't already married. I think they were in the book because, boy, I don't know what David's waiting for. She's pretty amazing in this film.
Look, when you've got the girl that wants to go on the adventure with you and wants to be right there by your side when you're 30, 40 feet down looking for buried treasure, why wouldn't you want to spend the rest of your life with her? Especially when she looks like Jacqueline Bisset.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Sign me up, Chuck.
There's a point in the movie where she gets backed into a corner and she has kind of a low moment for her character. but by the time the end of the film, she's taking on the bad guys on her own terms as well.
Yeah.
She's a good character in the film that has a good story arc.
When you talk about Gail, the character, I think she probably has the best character arc. I think she has the best storyline as far as like growth and overcoming adversity, for sure.
Her character reminded me a little bit of Lee Remick in The Omen.
Okay.
Just in the fact that all the male lead, they had their scuffles. Like Lee Remick, she gets put through the ringer, whether it's in the opening underwater sequence when she first encounters the moray eel.
Yep.
We don't yet know that's what it is. All the way to getting attacked in her apartment. And then finally, unlike Lee Remick's character, she is not thrown out of a hospital window.
Thankfully.
But she does have to defend herself when she comes up out of one of the final dives in the film.
Chuck, let's not forget that very tense moment, Cloche, when he shows up to search them, the little glass bottle.
Yeah.
And just such a tough moment for the character, I think. But does what is needed to be done, to save. At that point, I think she's saving David, honestly, Nick Nolte's character.
Look, if it's not in the bag, I don't know where in the hell it is.
The girl.
Now, look, she hasn't got it.
If his tongue moves again, cut it.
I'll do it.
Well, since neither of you seem to have that bottle, I must assume it is now the property of Roma Tris.
Well, then, for Christ's sake, let him go.
Do you remember the scene at the end of Romancing the Stone where Jack has the stone in his pants and he gets kicked and he's kind of like, oh, and it comes sliding down and he kicks it off his boot? I kept waiting for Cloche to do that to David. Looking for the ampule, okay?
Looking for the, yeah.
Yeah. And just so you know, in the ampule is morphine, is what it turns out to be. And Cloche is wanting to get the morphine to turn it into some distributable drug. The character of Cloche is played by Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah.
Louis Gossett is always so magnetic.
Chuck, we, over at the Film by Podcast, have covered, I want to say we've covered 4 different Louis Gossett Jr. movies at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's awesome. So when I was campaigning for The Deep over here, it wasn't so much a white T-shirt. It was Lou Gossett, man. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And to see him play a bad guy is fantastic because he doesn't typically do that.
That was what surprised me at the beginning of the film, because when Cloche first approaches David and Gail, he presents himself as a collector of rare glass, and he tells them some story that it's from some famous maker. And so I was thinking he's a treasure hunter, and
he's a collector. He's like Donovan from Last Crusade, right? He's harmless.
Or, we have Treese, right? Romer Treese, played by Robert Shaw. And I just thought that the two of them were going to be competing treasure hunters and that Gail and David were going to be caught between these two characters. So you said you've covered Louis Gossett 4 times. In our first season of Cinematic Flashback, we have had Robert Shaw in 4 of our episodes.
Which stuns me because you say Robert Shaw, you immediately think Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're me, I always think Jaws and The Deep, the Peter Benchley double shot. You guys covered this movie Black Sunday.
Yeah.
And as soon as I was done listening to that, I had to go watch the film, mainly because I wanted to see another Robert Shaw movie. And obviously The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, which is a classic, but it kind of had fallen off my radar my whole life. So you guys have beefed up my Robert Shaw filmography just like you have my Donald Sutherland filmography, and I appreciate you guys for that.
Donald Sutherland, I believe, is a close second. I think we've done 3, maybe we might have done 4 with Donald Sutherland. But one of the things that Matt talked about on The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, I cannot believe that he died in 1978. So like a year after this film, he died. He was 51, and I cannot look at Jaws and hear him deliver the Indianapolis speech.
Yep.
And he's something like, 47, 48 probably when they're filming it. What a talent this man was.
Absolutely.
Eli Wallach, he plays Coffin, who was one of Treese's assistants. You may know Eli Wallach as Tuco from The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. He was also in The Magnificent Seven. Unfortunately, most of his material ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Chuck, because there is an extended version of this film. And if you have the Blu-ray or the DVD, you kind of get treated to a lot of the deleted scenes. And for the life of me, I don't know why they cut so much of it, but there's a lot more Eli Wallach, and there's a lot bit of Eli Wallach's son. I didn't know if you knew this, Chuck.
Did he play the young Romer Treese?
His son played the young Adam Coffin.
Okay.
And Robert Shaw's son played the young Romer Treese.
Okay.
They both were on set because we get this great opening about the Goliath.
Yeah.
And it's sinking, and these guys just called up their sons and had them play the younger versions of themselves.
The Goliath is a wartime supply vessel that had both munitions and vials of morphine that they were taking to the war front. During a storm, it sinks. Adam Coffin is the only survivor, and he washes up on shore where he is found by the young Romer Treese at the beginning of the film. I saw this somewhere. Maybe it was like a YouTube when I was researching, but I would love to see this. I think they included it in the ABC Sunday night movie.
Chuck, speaking of TV, though, did you ever get the chance to watch the CBS special presentation?
I looked for that. I could not find it. I have not seen it.
All the more reason to own a physical copy of this, because you're treated to The Making of the Deep, hosted by Robert Shaw. Chuck, what's cool is it's 1977. ABC releases The Making of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. No, that one I saw.
Well, we all saw that one. But Columbia, again, like this movie, the marketing behind this movie is just genius. Columbia sees what Fox is doing with Star Wars, and they're like, we'll do that too. So they create a 1-hour special for CBS. And when you watch it, it's so great. Remember that CBS special presentation? I always love that.
That told you were in for something good.
And right there off the bat, there's Robert Shaw standing in front of the ocean like, hey, I'm Robert Shaw, and we're going to talk about the dangers and the beauty of the deep.
Jeff, I want to give you some numbers about the deep, okay?
Let me have them, Chuck.
Over 1 million cubic feet of compressed air was used in this film. Nearly 11,000 person hours underwater. Approximately 9,000 dives logged. It was 153 days of production. It was the 7th highest grossing film of 1977, behind the likes of Star Wars, Close Encounters, and Saturday Night Fever. It cost Peter Guber $500,000 to buy the rights deal before the novel was published. It was filmed in not one, not two, but 4 different oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, and the Arctic. The film was released 18 months after the novel. It was Peter Benchley's second novel, and it was his second novel to be adapted into a film that starred Robert Shaw. And it was the first film to employ an underwater script supervisor for continuity. So, Jeff, how does a movie this successful just vanish from the cultural conversation?
That's a great question that I don't have an answer to, because I feel like this movie delivers on everything it promises to. We've talked about the action, the romance, the beautiful scenery. Let's not forget, Robert Shaw tells Peter Guber, what would really make this movie awesome? Let us do the underwater filming.
Director Yates felt that the actors took precedence even with all the hardware. It was crucial that they themselves play their parts underwater.
When you see Nick Nolte trying to reach a piece of gold and being unable to reach and having to take his mask off and do it without any breathing underwater, when you see him do it himself, I think an audience gets much more involved and is much more frightened, and therefore enjoys the picture much more.
I think the biggest thing in diving is your own personal fear. You spend the first 3 weeks just reacting to another environment. You're in a kind of a weightless situation. There's fish swimming around you, there's sponges, there's octopuses, there's all sorts of things. You're sitting there and your main reaction is, wow. You go down there, the first thing that strikes you is to say, Jesus, I'm breathing underneath the water. I don't know if I was supposed to do that. You know, if I was supposed to do that, wouldn't I have gills?
You're seeing Nolte and Bisset in camera doing a lot of these things. Like, I always think about that moment where Nolte's struggling. He's like in that really tight crevice, and he has to take off his mask and his O2 or whatever just to reach. And you can clearly see it's him. Chuck, they're 8 miles out, and they're anywhere from 30 feet to 100 feet deep, depending on the day. That's some dangerous stuff. So right there, that should have been enough to make this like one of the most important movies of the 70s, if not cinema history.
If I was to tell anybody why you should watch this film, it's for exactly what you just said right there. You're seeing the actors. You see their stunt doubles, of course, but for the most part, you can tell it's Nick Nolte. You can tell it's Robert Shaw. And Robert Shaw has an interesting diving suit.
Can we talk about this real quick?
Please.
Okay, because I know we all love to focus on the white T-shirt that Jacqueline Bisset uses to dive in. I got to ask, why is Robert Shaw diving in a white collared button-down shirt and a pair of khakis?
Oh, don't forget the socks.
And the socks. Like, I couldn't find anything on why this choice is made. Maybe it's in the book, but don't you think that's a little weird?
He's Robert Shaw playing Romer Treese. That's all I could say.
This is like, hey, my very cool single uncle is going to teach us how to dive, but he's not going to spend the money on any kind of a diving attire. He's just, yeah, let's do this. Not once, but I get it if you're like you're in the middle, like the story called for him to have to do it.
Sure.
In the moment, but he does it like, what, twice, 3 times?
Every time he's down there, he's dressed in khakis or whatever he was wearing above surface. It's no secret that Robert Shaw enjoyed his drink.
Yep.
And he and Nick Nolte got along very famously, either in between breaks or outside of breaks. I think at some point they were worried that maybe Robert Shaw was diving possibly intoxicated.
So here's the thing about that. All these actors have to become certified divers, right? Shaw decides, if I'm going to do this, you can send someone out to my house.
Yeah.
In Ireland, I think is where he was living at the time. And that guy was like, I know, I've heard the stories about Jaws. This guy is going to be drunk like the whole time, and I'm a little worried. But more to the point, Chuck, when you watch this CBS special presentation that's hosted by him, Robert Shaw has this fun little anecdote about Nick Nolte's birthday while they're filming, and wanted to cheer Nick Nolte up a little bit. Nolte was using like a double tank situation.
Working down there with Nolte, I invented a new thing. He has a twin pack now, scuba tanks, 2, you see. One is full of, the usual thing, air, and the other is full of neat vodka. And it's worked on a special little suction pump, which we've worked out precisely. And so we get mouth-to-mouth resuscitation either way.
And Chuck, think about this. He's telling this on primetime television, and he's like, hey, you have enough drinks, you don't worry about the sharks that are swimming around, you don't worry about drowning, you don't worry about getting caught, you just have a good time. And I'm thinking, a lot of people probably watching that in 1977, chuckling and going, oh, that Robert Shaw. But I gotta wonder, like, was he really telling a true story? Because we know the situation with Shaw.
Did you hear, or did they talk about in the CBS special about the biggest underwater soundstage?
But the major logistical achievement of the film was this remarkable underwater set. 120 feet in diameter and 30 feet deep. It contains 50,000 pounds of sand and 1 million gallons of actual Atlantic water.
It was built on Boaz Island in Bermuda. It's roughly 120 feet wide, 30 feet deep, and it's a saltwater tank which functioned as a fully underwater studio. And because the bus was a controlled environment, Yates was able to control the lighting, the visibility, so you get just amazing underwater composition.
Beautiful filming.
It doesn't look like it's filmed in a pool. And most importantly, it kept the actors safe while showing Nick Nolte, Jacqueline Bisset, and Robert Shaw actually diving. There were times I could not tell when they were in open water versus when they were actually on the set.
It's almost impossible to tell between the two, because you got to remember, like, the fact that they're pumping in the seawater, I mean, everything's going to match up as far as I'm concerned. It's the same locale. It's the same water. I was kind of surprised to find out that they had built this giant underwater set on location. I couldn't tell. I absolutely could not tell.
We'll pause here for just a moment. Think of it as a real change. Stick around. There's more cinematic flashback coming up right after this. And we're back. The lights are down, the film's rolling, and the final act begins. Let's jump back into the Cinematic Flashback podcast. So, The Deep was a box office success in 1977, but it had a mixed critical reviews, as you could imagine. And today, it sits around 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. That 38%, does that feel right to you?
It feels absolutely wrong. I don't understand it. I think people that are rating it, they got the bends. Maybe they came up they came up too fast.
They came up way too fast.
Yeah, they came up way too fast. This should not be at 38%.
The only thing I can think of is that if you're going in and you have the mindset Jaws is a once-in-a-lifetime film. You can't compare Jaws really to anything else. But if you take The Deep on its own, it's definitely not at 38%.
Maybe that's what's wrong. People go, hey, you like Jaws, right? This is The Deep. This is the same guy. It's even the same actor. And maybe you go in with a little bait and switch. Maybe you just assume that you're going to see something terrifying like the eel, but that's not what's terrifying. You know, we got a whole different situation happening with drugs and treasure and voodoo, and maybe people are like, yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It was for me, though. I love The Deep.
What about this film worked for you? Were there any scenes that you just liked that we hadn't really gotten into?
Let's just get the one out of the way. The opening of this movie.
What the hell are you trying to do? Kill yourself?
I saw him down.
Who was it?
I don't know. Something grabbed my arm, twisted me around. Almost pulled my arm out.
Here, give me this. Listen, I told you. You gotta stay with me.
David, I can't.
I think one thing that Peter Yates does really, really well is he kind of lulls you into this false sense of security because you're too busy staring at Jacqueline Bisset until she has that first encounter with the eel. And we don't know it's an eel. We don't know what's going on. And that's a violent jerk of her arm underneath that crevice. And it's terrifying because it just keeps hammering at her, right? Because she's caught, she's trapped, and it will not let go. And you got to remember the stunt woman dislocated her shoulder because the guys on the other side were told, Yates said, hey, as hard as you can. And they didn't know. They didn't know that they're physically hurting this woman, but
it was very violent.
It takes you out of that whole like, ooh, Jacqueline Bisset. Now you're like, oh my God, Jacqueline Bisset, someone save her, someone help her.
It's playing on your fears of drowning.
Oh, absolutely it does. And Chuck, if I could take you back, this movie opens against The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. And what actually was amazing was that the word of mouth on The Exorcist 2 was so negative as opposed to the strong word of mouth about Jacqueline Bisset in the first 10 minutes of The Deep being so positive that when the dust settled, The Exorcist 2 was like a very distant second in box office. The Deep was the #1 movie. So you got to give that white t-shirt credit one last time.
Peter Guber said that by the time people sat down and were watching The Deep, they had already seen at least 14 minutes of the film. You know, there's two parts of making a movie, right? There's production and there's distribution. And in the distribution part, it's their responsibility to promote the film, to get it booked into theaters. And the marketing of this film was so well done that it put butts in seat and it just blew Exorcist 2 out of the water. What did you have next?
Let's get out of the water for a second because I think one of the best scenes in the film, the cliff elevator fight between Nick Nolte's character and one of Cloche's henchmen. And I'm not afraid of heights, but watching this thing, I'm terrified of heights.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've got this thrilling moment where David is rushing back. They get in the shallows. He dives off the boat, swims, hits the beach running because Gail is in danger. He knows Gail is in danger. And the fastest way to get up to her is this. When I say elevator, I'm talking about like a 2 square feet.
It's not an elevator that you really would want to take down. I would probably take the stairs.
It's 100% action. When I say this makes me feel like I'm watching a James Bond film, this scene definitely did it. It's terrifying.
What I liked in this scene is that there's like a 1-2 punch, right? The first punch is when David finally dispatches the individual that they're fighting. And then the second punch is he realizes that the counterweight is shooting up and he's right on top of it. So he has to move at the very last second when it comes up. And you're just like, wow.
It's 1977. How did they do that? How did Nick Nolte not just get murdered on set? I don't understand. It's harrowing.
Growing up, I always wanted a moped. There was something that just took me back to 1977, seeing David and Gail going about the island on their mopeds, because all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, I always wanted one of those. And then they have to throw in the excitement, because now there's a truck that's barreling down on them.
Menacing truck. The great thing about this, and what makes it really tense and nerve-wracking for you, is that the truck is not trying to push David into the wall and take him out. It's going after Gail.
I wonder what the hell this guy's doing.
I'm watching this just terrified for David, because like just the helplessness that he has to feel. Because you know, if you're the one that the truck is going after, you're helpless regardless. And I'm scared for Gail, but I'm more scared for David because he's right there in the moment. What is he going to do, Chuck? Like, how does he save his girl? He can't.
Yeah.
And that helplessness, it kills me every time I watch this movie. I love that scene, but I kind of hate it too.
If you're keeping score, Gail has already nearly drowned. She has almost been run over by a truck. She has been made to strip down to show that she doesn't have the ampule of morphine on her body.
There's a lot put on Gail, I think. There's one more scene I'd like to address. And, you know, the whole reason that David is rushing up this terrifying cliff elevator to get to her is because we see that on the island, the lights are out. And we get this terrifying voodoo attack. I've seen this in a couple movies. And every time you're like, please don't kill the woman. Please don't assault the woman. And they never do, because it's not about that. It's about fear. It's about putting fear in someone. So they, you know, you've got these guys and these crazy get-ups, and they're scary as all get out. But then they're holding the woman down. They slowly cut her clothes open, but not to show anything, just to get to that chicken foot that's dipped in blood so they can draw their voodoo stuff all over her.
Yeah.
It's just horrific to watch, and it's a terrifying moment. So
I hate that in my entire life. I'm so helpless. They abandoned me.
Quiet. We'll go home tonight.
Boy, the airport's closed. No way off the island. You best come home with me.
I bought my ticket for the Deep. All right, we're treasure hunting. It's an action movie. We're having some fun. Voodoo assault does not register. So when it hits, you're like, where did this come from?
My last one that I have to bring up, and we've flirted around it, it has to be the moray eel.
Percy.
I'm sure they had some scenes, like in Jaws, of a real moray eel, but they also had the mechanical moray eel, and they named it Percy. Percy lives in a hole in the Goliath, and once you know where the hole is, every time they have to swim nearby it, the camera will just kind of linger up at it.
You're waiting
to let you know where you are
Yeah.
in relationship. And at any moment, you're ready for that jump scare to happen again. And I think Peter Yates milked that hole for all it was worth.
That little hatch in the Goliath, that dark hatch, that's one of the scariest things in this movie. Because every time they go near it, you're like, in there? Is it coming out? You're not. We know you're not going in there, but is it going to poke its head out again?
This was Chekhov's eel.
This is definitely Chekhov's eel.
They showed the eel in the first act. You know it's coming back for the third. So,
well, you're kind of on edge the whole movie because you're like, where is that eel? It's out there. They keep going back to this shipwreck. You know it's in there. You know it's out there somewhere. If it's a first-time watch, you're looking in the murky areas of the water like, is it there? Is it coming?
Any scenes in here that just didn't work for you?
I'm not going to say that there were scenes that didn't work for me, but I will say that maybe some of the underwater stuff could be trimmed a little bit. I understand, like, we want to just hang out with all the splendor, but you could probably trim a little bit of these underwater scenes, just a tad. How about you?
And I felt that sometimes when they were out of the water, that all of a sudden you started getting a lot more exposition. And for me, it was like, okay, it's starting to slow down here. I've kind of gotten addicted here to the adventure and the action and stuff. I'm ready for it to go on. And I know you liked the voodoo sequence. For me, that just felt, it kind of felt a little gratuitous because it didn't really seem to change the plot. Again, I'm keeping score, so this is number 4 for Gail.
Yeah.
Attacked by voodoo, Haitian voodoo sequences.
We've thrown everything out here at this point. Why not some voodoo?
So let me tell you what. When you find a woman who is that strong and she can get back up and spear a guy at the very end, David, you marry her. So before we asked a question, was there anything else you wanted to cover, Jeff?
I think we went deep enough on this one, Chuck.
I see what you did there. Okay, let's ask the question. Did The Deep groove through the decades, or did it lose its beat? Jeff, what do you say?
I do think it grooves. And Chuck, if you agree, if your listeners agree, let's not forget about the remix that's out there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
I am talking about the 2005 film called Into the Blue, starring Jessica Alba and Paul Walker and Scott Conn and Josh Brolin. Here's the thing. It's not a remake. It was never billed as a remake of The Deep, but it is a bona fide remake of The Deep. Have you seen, the movie I'm talking about, Chuck? You've seen it?
I haven't put it together, so my mind's a little blown right now.
But think about this. Paul Walker and Jessica Alba, they're a couple. They're trying to make ends meet. They're treasure hunters, right? And then they get caught up in this whole thing of, we found a shipwreck. There's treasure, but unfortunately there's also drugs. And the guy that we think is our friend is not our friend. And he's the bad guy. And now we got to take him on. And we've got these spectacular moments underwater. Into the Blue has everything, story-wise, character-wise, that The Deep has. The only thing it's missing is a white T-shirt for Jessica Alba. She didn't do that. She didn't need to, because she looks fantastic in the bikini that she's wearing. Paul Walker looks fantastic. It's a great movie, but I'm watching it going, does anyone else not realize that we're watching The Deep from 1977? This is The Deep, Chuck.
I can hear David Spade saying,
but I liked it better the first time I saw it, when it was called
The Deep.
The Deep. Yeah, absolutely. Great film. I'm not taking anything away from it, but like the tagline says on the poster, is the treasure worth the terror? It absolutely is, because this movie grooves, man.
This film was fast-tracked to cash in on Jaws. You have the same author, the same actor, ocean setting. Audiences showed up. It sank Exorcist 2 on its opening weekend. But ask people about it today, and I don't think most people know that it even exists. It didn't have the same cultural impact that Jaws had, even though the film was a hit. Jaws is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of movie. Nothing is going to come close to being a Jaws. That 38% score, it's way too harsh. There are scenes that could have been tightened up. some of the exposition, some of the diving scenes also could have been tightened up. We could have made this maybe an hour and 40-minute movie other than a 2-hour film. But man, that underwater work still looks so good, even being a film from 1977. You're watching Robert Shaw, Nick Nolte, and Jacqueline Bisset for real in scuba gear underwater. So even though the times may have forgotten the deep, I still think it grooves. I really liked it. So before we sign off, Jeff, what is coming up on a film buy? What should listeners be excited about?
Well, it's December. We're wrapping things up for the season. We got some fun stuff happening. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say next week, happy to have the voice of reason herself, Amber Lewis, back in the studio with me. Every year we always try to find a couple obscure movies that I feel are Christmas movies, even though they're not labeled Christmas movies. Mm-hmm. So her and I will be talking about a film by Danny DeVito, his amazing dark comedy, War of the Roses. Fantastic fun on that one. And then, of course, 2 days later, our good buddies David, Wayne, and Scott will be back on the bridge for our Phaser Set to Stun Star Trek-themed podcast. They're getting close to wrapping up their starter treks, Deep Space Nine. I believe they're up to season 6, so that's just about wrapped up.
Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for making this happen tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed talking about the deep.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for taking a chance on this one, because I was very happy to be a part of it.
It was my pleasure. I rediscovered a film that I really liked. And thank you, listener, for hopping into the Wayback Machine with us today. Have you seen The Deep? Tell us what you thought about it and where it ranks in the Robert Shaw Ocean Cinematic Universe at cinematicflashback.com. Join us next time as we dive into another film from the grooviest decade in cinema. And until then, beware of anything hiding in underwater holes. It probably bites.
How to do in every city and town. And